Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tea with Taylor. So happy to see you all here, virtually, of course, for joining me for the premiere of season 3 of Tea with Taylor. Really excited. There's been so much going on within my own personal life and with Progress channel and all things life, of course. Um, but I'm really glad to be back here with you, bringing you the tea, bringing you some real conversations. Um, oh, okay, the perks of being live. Yeah, so I want to bring to your attention today's topic is talking about our call for social justice. We're going to have the executive director of BLM Rhode Island movement come on a little bit later, and we're going to get into that and we're going to talk about it. And I want to hear from you all in the comment sections about what you think and how we are going to get into it. Trust me, you'll want to be heard. But before all that, if you've been watching, or if you are a fan, or if this is your first time joining, I like to start with, something I like to call hot topics. They're not so very hot. They're not probably nothing you haven't heard before. But things that interest me throughout the week and topics that pop up that aren't necessarily so dreary as the world that we are currently faced with. So one of the things that popped up in hot topics for me was somewhat unfortunate event, but I could have sworn I seen it coming. Miss Ellen is ending her talk show amidst some rumors about her not being so great to her workers and things of that nature behind the scenes. So she is deciding to end her show. There are some small details here and there, but a lot of people are actually wondering who's going to succeed Ellen. That would actually be more interesting to me to hear than Ellen ending her show, because we all knew that this was coming to an end. Ellen was she told us all in the beginning that she wasn't a talk show host, that she was a comedian, and that wasn't something that she planned on doing, but she was happy to do it. So who comes after Ellen is what I'm actually looking for. I've heard conversations about Tiffany Haddish, or even uh or even the one of the other black female hosts from Nailed It. It's a show on Netflix. Don't remember her name. If you guys do, put that in the comments. Let me know. But she's very happy-go-lucky person. She's very smart. She's very on top of it. She's witty, and she's another comedian. So I think she would be good. Um, Another thing in pop culture, so to speak, that stood out to me, because you all know I love J Lo, everything J Lo. Judge me now or forever hold your peace. But she is apparently back with Ben Affleck. She's been spotted together with him a few times now. And hey, I mean, if he doesn't make you happy, then move on. That's all I have to say about that situation. And we talked about that with the Inner Circle gang here on Tea with Taylor about the whole J Lo A Rod situation, and they were going to stay together for the kids, and they were going to do therapy and all the other things. And yeah, I don't know. It just sounded like something to say in the meantime while they figured out how they were going to break up publicly. Because again, it is something that's in the public eye that normally, if it were something that was just happening with Mary, Catherine, and Joe around the corner, we wouldn't know about it. But it's because of her level of celebrity status that we keep hearing about these breakups in her love life and her personal life. So the decision to get back with Ben Affleck might have been something for her mental health, or I don't know, maybe she's just jumping back into it as a single woman. Who knows? But this is happening, so I figured it was worth mentioning. You're welcome. Jaden Smith, something in pop culture. But I read this actually, and it really like made my heart smile, so to speak. Jaden Smith is actually opening up, or planning on opening up, a group of food trucks in LA, where he is allowing homeless people to eat for free. So that seems like a really notable effort, and really something great that I have not heard of before. To open up a chain of food restaurants with the idea of having homeless people eating for free, that's something that I'm not sure how sustainable it will be, or what his plan is there, but I think it's great. And the homeless population in LA is exorbitant. It's crazy to think that someone hasn't had something like that happen. I mean, we have food shelters and we have things like that, but even those are very few and far between. We haven't heard a lot of solutions for our homeless problem. here in our neck of the woods and in the country as a whole. So I'm glad to see that somebody else is still thinking about it, celebrity or not. Another thing that is really big in the news right now is after 20 years, we're finally withdrawing our troops from Afghanistan. So that's a great thing to hear. I'm really happy to hear that these troops are going to be able to return home. And I know that when we started this 20 years ago, that a lot of these people were not thinking that this was going to be a 20-year stunt or 20-year stint. So I can't even like think of the words. It's unfathomable to me to have, these people there for so long for this war that was almost unnecessary in a way. Because now we even have this thing with the pipeline being shut down with gas shortages and that. And then we have Iran and Iraq fighting and bombing each other. And these are the things we had tried to avoid with this Afghanistan war, or so they say. So why do we still have our troops there for 20 years and then still encountering all the problems that we were trying to avoid proactively with this war in Afghanistan? That's a question for another time. But I'm glad to hear that after 20 years, these people are returning home, that, the people that have given their lives for this war isn't all for naught. So I'm glad. Thank you, President Biden, for making that one of your initiatives, for bringing those people home. It's, again, something I didn't think 20 years in the making would be when we said we were going to send troops into Afghanistan. And I'm sure they didn't think so either. With that, I want to just, say thank you guys for watching again. And we're going to get into our topic, our call for social injustice. And again, today we have Executive Director of the BLM Rhode Island Movement, Harrison Tuttle. And I want to have him join us today so we can get into it. Hey, there you go. What's up?
How's it going?
So far, so good. Just wanted to talk the people's ears off about some hot topics in the news lately. I'm glad to see you come in, joining in, smiling. Yeah. The yellow is very bright. It makes me smile.
Yeah. No, this is actually one of our local artists here in Rhode Island named John Hope. And so anytime that I can show love to, local artists, I try to do that.
Oh, nice. John Hope, you said, huh?
Yeah. He actually put out an album this year as well. So.
Whoa. Okay, that's big news. That's big news.
Yeah.
Let me see a little bit more of it. Can you show us?
Okay.
Oh, okay. I love that.
Yeah.
You have to share the link with us, with the viewers in the comment section at some point. I love to support local artists. At some point, with my fashion business, I want to create a thrift shop where I can sell local artists and local collections on a monthly basis. So I'll keep that in mind, Mr. Hope.
Yeah.
But we came here today to talk about social injustice and how our society has a call right now, and we are screaming into the high heavens, a call for justice, a call for social justice. And it's not something new. It's just with the way that things have been going, it's something that we have to keep on top of. And I applaud you for your work with BLM Rhode Island. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. My name's Harrison Tuttle. I'm 22 years old. I'm the executive director of Black Lives Matter RI PAC. Just to kind of summarize what a PAC is, or a political action committee that focuses on electing progressive officials, as well as changing policy, because we're in a legislative session right now. And so, things like LEOBOR, which is the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, which basically, provides an extra set of rights for police officers. We were testifying, and we led a campaign with Senator Mack this week and weeks before. So, I'm super excited to be here, and let's get started, I guess.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that you're excited about it. I've had the privilege of hearing you speak at a few rallies and on your social media pages. And I also have met Tiara Mack, who you were just talking about, and she's a phenomenal woman, a very strong queer woman, and she is doing her part right now to make sure that these social injustices aren't, just pushed under the table, as well as what you're doing with the BLM movement. So I'm glad to hear you mention actually Tiara Mack. That's very great.
Yeah.
That she's being involved in all these different things, like
Mhm.
she said she would.
Senator Mack is, I mean, just an incredible person and so smart. And that is, the PAC fully endorses everything that she does, and I'm
Yeah.
super proud to be associated with her.
So yeah, no, she's fiery. I got that after talking to her for 20 minutes. I was like, oh yes, let me
Yeah,
in on a little bit of that. Um,
yeah,
so just for the viewers, I'm going to start off with a bit of definitions for you that define what we're talking about today, just to give you some grounding on what we're speaking on at a very basic level. Social justice is the relation of balance between individuals and society measured by distribution of wealth, personal liberties, and fair privilege opportunity. Injustice is when equals are treated unequally, if you ask me. Injustice also entails discrimination, a situation in which the dominant population is made known of the iniquity that affects others due to their position in a set structure of power. And injustice can also be defined as the absence of justice. And to speak on discrimination, which is illegal in the US, it is found, however, in our education system, our housing system, it's found in employment, voting, lending, and credit. It's found in our healthcare and our government benefit system. So for something to be illegal, however, we're still finding it is a major factor in so many parts of life that we all encounter. Major social justice issues in our society are unequal and unfair treatment that lead to what we now have a built up anger within the community. How would you describe discrimination? And tell me, have you seen these instances of discrimination? We talked about discrimination in the education system on Tea with Taylor, even a little bit about the housing and employment situation. Tell me a little bit about that, Harrison.
yeah. I mean, I think that discrimination and those definitions that you gave perfectly explain what America was built on. It's very difficult to claim injustice and claim discrimination as a country and what you stand for when you have been founded on the genocide of indigenous people and have stolen their land and then exploited black and indigenous people across the world for their labor to build up your infrastructure. And I think throughout history, what we've seen is that those things have only continued in different forms, whether that's wage theft, whether that's being able to, discriminate, be able to not afford people jobs based off the color of their skin or with the way they identify. And I think, when it comes to education, I think that, the things that were taught in the classroom oftentimes are not the facts and are not the actual events that took place.
Yeah, it's the
Uh,
American version.
right. Yeah, it's very much a whitewashed version of our history, and I think that I saw a report that came out last weekend of what was deemed the progress gap between ninth graders and Latino and Black and communities, and how 78% of people that are Black and Latino are off track to graduate, right? And so, I think I tweeted, that's not a progress gap, that's systemic racism. And that's so true because what we see is that our schools and our communities are so under resourced that when you have a global pandemic that affects not only the entire world but specifically affects Black people, Black and brown communities at a disproportionate rate, those end up resulting in almost 80% of our freshmen not being able to be on track to graduate.
Right, and as you said, the pandemic just kind of exposed those weaknesses and those discriminatory behaviors that most people would just look past, especially within our education system. To think that the stats clearly show that Black and Brown students are lagging behind students of other minority groups or other races. That is not something that we should be boasting as a thing that we are dropping the ball on. That's our education system and the broken government that has been given to us. And I'm glad to hear you say a lot of those things because I completely agree with everything you're saying, as usual. And not only is it, again, fixing the people, because the people aren't 100% to not to blame for these things. Because there are certain times within the Black and Brown community, I'm sure you know, where we're like, oh, that I don't believe in that, or that's not true to me, so I'm not going to spread that truth, although it is true. But little situations like that, I understand, and I know that it's not 100% on the system. However, we have to fix the system and the people. The people are following behind this system that is broken, as you said.
Right.
Just like and with the pipeline shutdown thing happening, like I was talking about a little bit earlier, that could be another way that COVID is exposing a weakness in our country. Our infrastructure problem that Biden is trying to attack. I didn't see the importance of it right away, but something like this, with the pipeline and how that has affected so many different people in so many different cities and states, that should be something that our infrastructure should be able to handle. If it weren't for something that we have built millennia ago on the backs of brown and Black people, maybe we could have updated that problem, or we could have seen that coming. But we don't have those workers anymore, so to speak. So now what do? We have an infrastructure that is failing us, along with the government that is failing us.
Right. And I think that just goes to speak on, the lack of willingness to actually change infrastructure and change different policies throughout this country and the state to be able to make it better for everyone, right? If it's working for a specific group of people, then we're not going to change it, even if it disproportionately affects a certain group of people over one.
Right. They're like, hey, it works for me, so I don't know. The rest of you guys can figure it out. That's right here.
Right.
And then throwing, distractions our way and incremental change. And I remember hearing you say at one of your speeches that we're not accepting incremental change and that we want the entirety of it all to be changed, to just start over from scratch. And I couldn't agree with that more. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there are fundamental issues, in the state and in this country, that, are built upon previous generations of racist policies and systemic problems, also based off our economic model of capitalism and how that seeks to exploit people to make a profit. I think that when you look at the systems that we need to change right now, I think we need to change the way we look at policing. I think we need to change the way we view imprisonment. I think we need to change the way we think about shelter and providing homes and providing food for people. I think, basic necessities need to be met, and they can't be met in a 2030 plan by the governor. They need to be met as soon as possible. Because, what we see a rising level of mental health. We see a rising level of drug use. We see a rising level of people not being able to provide the basic necessities for not only themselves, but their family. And so that cannot come soon enough. And we need more people, whether that's the city council or whether that's state legislators or representatives to run from office from our communities.
That's a big one that I hear from Tiara Mack as well. Representation makes a huge difference. If we are people are making these laws and people in charge of changing the society and this, why are we not having the people that are involved in that be a part of those conversations? And that was something I took from Tiara Mack as well. So it's really great to hear that you are also on that. Representation matters. We've been saying it for quite some time. If you expect to know the community and to know what we need and to know how to do it, then you need to have those people involved, the people that are being affected, speaking on it.
Right, and I think it's important. Not only do we get representation, but those people that are elected from our communities know the issues of the community and actively seek to pursue a solution to those.
Right.
And I think that if you have someone who is, let's say, Black, let's say, who is, any one of our, members of our community, right? They need to be actively pushing for change, like Senator Mack, like David Morales, like Representative Morales, because that's how you get things done. That's how you create a movement of people who are looking for solutions, not politicians who seek to maintain the system that has been in Rhode Island specifically for so long.
Oh yeah, I can as an implant, I can see it so very clearly when I moved to this state that the monies that go to there's first of all there's way too much of it that goes to the politicians, and then we don't see any benefit from that monies.
Mhm.
Uh, I may be just looking a little too hard for something to change, but I don't quite see the equivalence of how much they get and how much they do. So we are over the trained politician era. I think it's time to do away with that. The lifelong politician that we've all just dealt with and that we all kind of hate, but we just deal with it because it's all we know. That era is far gone. And it's great to see again something like President Biden, who has progressives on part of his cabinet and bringing in a lot of new blood to this game of politics. It's funny on the list of things that you mentioned, though. The one of the very first things, I think the second thing you mentioned was police reform, and that's a really, really, really huge one for me right now. Um, I read something in a study that more than 1,000 people died as a result of police brutality in 2019. But that study also showed that in a consistency from since 2017 or 2018, that 1 in 2,000 men and 1 in 3,000 women are murdered due to police violence or police brutality. That's completely unacceptable. It sounds like a small number, but when you think about the portion that BIPOC people make up in this country, to be killed senselessly by police in any number is a huge number. Um, and I know that you talked about it a little bit earlier, but the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, it plays a really big role in why police can get away with these kinds of things and why they have. Also, qualified immunity. And we have a huge problem with gun violence in this country as well. And we are seeing that even to this day, where we just had a mass shooting the other day. Um, I want to ask you a little bit about, a little bit about the local police and how you think we can come about this huge problem of gun violence.
Yeah, I think first off, when it comes to the conversation around police, I think that um, the way we view police in this country and in this state, we kind of need to change the way we think of them. Oftentimes, defenders of police will come out and say, "Well, hey, they're going to protect us, right?" Well, oftentimes, crimes are committed after the police show up, right? Not many times are they coming to stop a crime.
No.
And if they do, they're going to escalate a situation in which results into, people in our community dying at the hands of them. And so it's a very simple concept, and concepts that are different from the norm make people uncomfortable. But the concept of having people respond to mental health issues, having people respond to areas of need, specific needs, and having people respond, such as a mental health specialist, to a mental health crisis going on. There's no need for us to have a police officer come. We need to have therapists and people that are trained in this area to deal with that specific issue. There's no need there's no reason why we should have police officers in our schools. We need people who are trained mental health specialists who are counselors that can help our kids on a day-to-day basis. And I
100%.
think when it comes to gun violence in this country, I can personally say that you know I'm fearful every single time, not only from the police, but when you have, different members of, right wing supporters who are, able to have the privilege of running around with guns. And at any moment, I know that, one could just have a bad day and affect
Just go
uh,
off.
right. And so, I think that's a direct result of this country and our infatuation with guns, and the right to protect ourselves. I think that we really need to be able to provide resources for our community, such as mental health, such as being able to have equitable things in all areas, from education to jobs to being able to help people get out of this pandemic. I think those are solutions to crime in the city, not
Right.
just saying, hey, well, like we just want to work together with you as police, but also know that we're gonna, bash your head in a week
Yeah.
later.
And it's, oh my God. It's so funny you say that, because one of the people that had recently been involved in a senseless killing with the police, and we're gonna say we're gonna talk about a few of the black and brown people that were murdered by police later on in the show. But what you just said actually just like completely happened. Where this gay black male had just gotten a ride home from a police officer, and then that very night, he called the police because of a dispute between him and his brother. And that very same police officer shot him 10 times. The same person he just gave a ride home.
Yeah.
How is that possible that you can ride in this car with someone, form somewhat of a social bond with this person, then in the very flip of a switch, in an instant, you can shoot that same person 10 times?
Right.
With no threat to you whatsoever. But the first thing you think as an officer is to reach for your gun, even still knowing the person that is involved in this situation. That makes zero sense to me.
Right.
And it's been a fact. It's been proven that police in the U.S. kill far more people than any other society. And I think I may have seen you quoted something about that, with our local police being one of the highest per capita or something.
Yeah. Yeah. They're one of the most violent police forces in the state per capita. And it just goes to show the fact that, no matter how, it doesn't matter what, political side you're on, you're either in a blue state or a red state, that ultimately police are following a systemic problem of racism, and to expect them to solve those solutions by themselves is counterproductive to the lives, saving lives of our people in our community.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that that is actually the norm, and we are fighting as hard as we can against. One of the tactics that police use, unfortunately, is a discriminatory tactic. They use race, age, and origin, or like even sex, basically, to decide how much force they're going to use in a situation. And that's just going back into the systemic racism, into discriminatory means that should have no place in policing. Police encounters, I found out in a study, play a major role in maintaining structural inequalities too, with the things that they do. And in the US, our criminal justice system, they see people as threats as opposed to seeing people as people. And that is where the problem begins. It's not just an officer or a person seeing another person in need, or another person who needs a ride home, for instance. It's the police seeing them as a threat from the beginning, before any interactions, before even knowing that person's name, or what may be happening around them. It's automatically the other person is a threat. And how do they deal with threats? Gun violence. And then we follow behind that by feeling the need to embrace our like you said, our obsession with guns, because we're allowed to have them technically by law. And then we follow behind that those people being gunned down with our own form of justice, where we decide we're going to be the ones with the guns and we're going to be the ones with the weapons. And then that just doesn't end well, as we are seeing.
Right.
for our country or for Black men and our Black women and our people of color. It's just not ending well.
Right. The use of guns in this country is directly connected to white supremacy and patriarchy, really. As you know, as we've seen throughout history, whether it's the Black Panthers or in any moment, the minute that anybody who isn't white seeks to use any amount of self-defense or is protective of their own property or rights as a human, that is met with deadly force, right? So it's very much a gun use in this country is very much tied to killing Black and Indigenous people.
Mm-hmm. I heard someone even go as far to say, and I don't know if I completely agree, but with these tactics and methods that they use, it seems like, excuse me, that they might be trying on some level to extinguish a whole generation or extinguish, a lot of our people, so to speak, as far as people of color. And I can't completely agree, but I can't completely disagree either. It was something I saw on social media, and I was like, wow. I mean, it shows that society is, trying to erase history and erase culture. The fact that we took this land from natives right then and there from the beginning shows how we are capable of erasing history. Whether or not that's happening with our people of color now, again, I can't completely disagree or agree, which is kind of scary.
It's hidden. So a lot of
Yeah.
the ways in which systemic problems are dealt with, there are very open cases of them. Some of them are very hard to figure out what they are, and to look at certain issues when it comes to police brutality that are open.
Right.
They meet all the checkpoints of or the criteria of genocide. What is the prison industrial complex? What is the military industrial complex?
Oh yeah.
What providing lack of resources to food, shelter, healthcare. All of these things are contributing to the death of our community. And so it is my belief that this is a very slow genocide of our people.
I like literally that's the best way to put it. I've been struggling with that, with that actually being possible. But in my mind, I know it's possible. Like I said, since the beginning, when we wiped out Native American culture and called this land ours, it's possible. And that's the scariest thing for me in my mind right now. And
Well,
it's something we should actually be more aware of. So I'm glad that we're talking about it right now. Just to end the conversation a little bit with the policing, so we can move forward a little bit. Among other things that we talked about, like the labor law and qualified immunity, lack of definitive evidence is common, and only 1% of officers, even now with body cams and things of that nature, are charged and convicted. One thing I want to ask you is, why do you think that is, and how do you think defund the police can help?
Yeah. So oftentimes when police get charged or they do anything that is uh, illegal, um, they have things like the Bill of Rights, they have things like qualified immunity, and they also have a system in place that protects them. As police officers are very much the quote dogs of the state, right?
Yep.
The dogs of the state, and they execute, they protect property, they protect invested interests in which the state wants to carry out, whether that you view that as a national scope or local scope. So when it comes to defunding the police, I think a lot of people get turned off by that because they think that defunding the police means no police at all. And that is the case, right? When we look at, this form of policing, but this form of policing negatively hurts communities of color. And so the idea of policing is to, do exactly what we talked about, which is provide mental health resources, provide, solutions through the state, through quote policing, to be able to help people, not view them as a threat.
Right, right, which is the problem. We've seen a lot of that with a lot, and again, a lack of definitive evidence, as they like to say. It has been in most of the cases that I looked up, lack of definitive evidence. Yet, I hear things like defund the police, and when I first heard it, I was concerned because I was like, wait, what are we replacing that with? Because you can't just say get rid of them and have nothing, because then we're a lawless society. But then we have things like with the budget increases that they have had in the past, things have been updated to somewhat fit our better nature. Like we have body cameras, like I was saying earlier now. So that is something that is a positive from the police system having a little bit more fun. But I do also think that defund the police is one of the most helpful things that we could do right now to disperse that income through different things like mental health and nurses and having those people in schools and pulling armed officers out of there. I do think that is one of the major solutions right now that we should follow behind. Again, at first when I heard defund the police, I was worried. I was like, oh no, what are we doing? We can't just, no, that's gonna bring on the purge, like good Lord. But now that I've actually learned a little bit more about it and I realize, what the plan would be to defund the police, now I am 100% sure that that is something we need. And I'm glad to hear you say that. Because again, only 1% of them are being convicted. Only 1% of them are being charged. And they do illegal things way more often than we'd like to admit. Just because all the things that back them, all the labor laws, the qualified immunity, and it can't be, we can't continue to let that happen. 132 civilians, I don't know if you heard this, but 132 civilians as a total were killed in the first 2 months of 2021 due to police brutality. 16 of those people were Black. I'm not sure how many other were people of color, but 16 of those 132 in the first 2 months of 2021 were murdered by police violence. And we had they had that conversation with the New York City mayoral debate. Did you catch any of that? That just happened, I want to say, last night.
No, I did not catch that last night.
I think with the way things are going with our society, that we are actually, most of us statewide are looking to New York right now as a kind of guidance for the way they go about things, and then we can follow behind. So it was important to me to catch the mayoral debate because there's been a lot of drama around the New York City mayoral department lately, as you know. But yeah, the debate, they brought up a lot of these things.
Yeah.
They brought up a lot of these things that resonated with me. So I'm hoping that they make the right choices so that we can then follow behind and see some of this change actually happening. What does reform look like to you? That's going to be my last question to you about police, because I know that we talk about reform within the system. Other than defunding them, what would reform look like to you right now for training for police? There's 8 hours of conflict de-escalation that is met with then 129 hours of weapon and fighting training. So what does that look like to you? What does reform look like? How do we get into this police system?
Yeah, I'm a believer that if it just based off reform and what it means, that the police cannot be reformed. I think there needs to be a complete change of the way we look at policing, as I spoke about later. I think, oftentimes we, say that we want to get to that result, but, that's not going to happen overnight. And so
Right.
There are progress that needs to happen in between that time. And that doesn't mean that progress needs to be incremental. That just means that, we need to take steps to be able to, effectively stop police brutality and all the negative things that police do to our community. And I think when it comes to things like body cameras, I think body cameras is great, right? Because what it does is it creates a visibility for people in our community, and it creates a visibility for our elected officials to see what's going on a day-to-day basis.
Accountability.
But oftentimes, those body cameras are released in an important after the fact that someone has
Right.
died. And so, how do we, although body cameras is great and the police are pushing for that internally, uh, how are we going to be able to stop the police killing Black people to begin with? Right.
Right.
And it is only then, and then which we can start the process of, quote, reforming the police. And so to get at the heart of the issue of policing, we need to get at the heart of the harm that they're actually doing. And training
Right.
is that's how many training courses do you need to go through to know that, you shouldn't kill Black people?
Right.
Like,
It's not something that you can train. It's like I think it's speaking to the uncovered or the pushed aside racism and discrimination, because that is where it all starts for me, and why people are so, or police or anyone are, are so ready to defend or so on attack mode because again, we talked about earlier, they see people as threats right away, and then we're discriminating and using stereotypes from when the earth was created to judge people's character. That's not
yeah,
not something that's going to hold water in this society, and it's being exposed, and I'm really glad that we are able to be on the front lines of this and make sure to get in front of it, so to speak, so that we can hopefully save lives. That's the end goal.
yeah,
Even where a lot of our trans siblings, I read something, I think it was 90% of trans siblings experience discrimination within the policing system, and within the workplace because they don't conform to a gender norm. And that's something that is just unheard of and unspeakable. So, it's going back to that core discrimination. And like you said, it's a system that was built on racism. And that's something that cannot stand. Um, Before we get into our game, because I want to, end on a lighter note because it's a very heavy situation that we have to talk about, but somebody's got to do it. That's why we're here. But before we get into that game, I just want to, leave on I want to make sure to get these names out there, say their names as so many people have said before. These are all people within the past 2 years or so, actually within the last year that have been had their lives have been ended by police brutality. And Eric Garner is one of those people. Andrew Brown of Louisiana, that was in 2021. David McAtee, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that last name. That was in June of 2020, shot in Louisville. George Floyd, May 25th of 2020 in Minneapolis. Sean Reed on May 6th of 2020 in Indianapolis. Breonna Taylor on March 13th in Louisville. Dwante Wright on April 2021 in Brooklyn. Rayshard Brooks, 2020. Daniel Prude, 2020. And Isaiah Brown, the gay Black man that we talked about earlier that got a ride from a police officer, 2021, shot 10 times in Virginia. So say their names, these are the names of the people that are being murdered, to say the least, that we even know about by policing and by someone else's insecurities or someone else's discriminatory thoughts. And that's unacceptable in this society, and we're no longer standing by for it. With that being said, Harrison, I'm going to give you a break. Woosah, you can take a drink. We are going to end the show very soon. But first, I wanted to play a game called Password. Have you ever heard of Password?
I have not. I'm excited, but kind of nervous.
Boy. Okay. So the idea behind Password is I'm going to think of I'm not going to think of it because I wrote it down already, but I'm thinking of a word, and I can only give you one word hints to get the word that I'm thinking. Okay. So if the word was sweater that I'm thinking of, I could say something like wool.
Okay.
I could say something like blank weather.
Yeah.
And I'll give you, I wrote down 4 clues for each word. So I'm going to give you 4 clues for each word and see if you can catch it, okay?
Gotcha.
Are you good at passwords? Are you good at cracking people's passwords on their phone?
No.
No. I know this person who actually is really good at that. She's like, just tell me a little bit about yourself, and then she'll figure out your phone password. It's insane.
Wow.
But okay, we're gonna play password. So first word, first clue. Mail.
So okay.
Blank office.
Post office.
Remember, the first clue was mail.
And then office. And that
Nope.
is office the hint?
No. Blank office was the second hint.
Oh, okay.
It's square, usually. That's the third hint. So mail blank. Blank
Mail
office.
No.
Yes.
No.
The word is box.
Mailbox.
The word is box. Yes, you got it.
Okay.
It's not that hard. Just go with it.
I feel pressured because there was 4 of them, so I want to continue it. So I don't want to be stuck at the first one.
Last clue was gonna be package.
Okay. Yeah.
So I feel you knew it. I saw the gears going.
Yeah.
It's really easy words, so don't overthink it. Just shout them out. Okay, the next one. Graphite.
Can I
Yellow.
Pencil.
Yes. Whoa. Okay. Shoot. Shoot.
Yellow.
Okay. Let's keep going. This one should be pretty easy. Buzz.
What's the hint? What did you say?
Pollinator.
Pollinator.
Beyonce.
Oh, Beyonce. No.
That's one of the clues.
Oh, beehive.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, if you don't get this, my last clue was gonna be black and yellow. I'm like, come on. I'm glad you were like, oh yeah, beehive. Yeah, that makes sense. Not pollinator, not Buzz, but Beyonce.
Right. Well, yeah.
Beyonce brought it home. As usual. I mean, what can I say? Whatever. All right, what? 2 more. Hands. Time. Alarm blank. Tick tock.
Alarm clock?
Yes.
Oh.
You were so unsure about it.
Well, because it's like the obvious answer is there, and I'm like, is it really that?
No, you're really good at this. You were like so unsure about your answer just now. It was hilarious. Okay, and the last one. Glasses. Vision. Betty Davis blank. Oh, come on. Tell me you don't know that song. The CBS logo?
Betty Davis blank glasses. No.
Vision.
No.
Ooh, you on the last word. That song is Betty Davis eyes.
No, I'm definitely not. I'm definitely didn't know that.
What? That is a whole bop. Wow.
When did that come out?
Don't ask me. It's an oldie. It's before my time.
If you ask me like anything from like Stevie Wonder or like Donny Hathaway, like I got it. But Betty is, I don't even. I feel bad now.
That's before our time too.
Huh?
That's before our time too.
Yeah.
So you know them.
Yeah, I just don't know Betty and Davis.
I know, you got to shoot your shot. I was like, hey, you might know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, you got 4 out of 5. So that's
good.
That was
I
successful.
know a lot of people are finishing school. That's a passing grade.
For real, you passed. That's a 90. I'm surprised because most people, when I go to the games, they're like so put on spot that they're like, oh no, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
It's fun though. It's great. I'm glad that you picked up on that. I'm trying to think of some more games for this season, so more to come. So you just keep an eye out.
Bet.
But with that, I'm going to let you guys get back to the rest of your Friday. I'm actually going to be joining my good friend Dion Baker at his Providence encounter with his church. Check my social medias and Dion Baker socials medias for that address. Harrison, was there anything you want to share with the viewers before we go?
I just want to say thoughts and prayers for the members of the family and the individuals that were involved in the mass shooting. And then on a lighter note, I just want to thank you so much for having me on as the season premiere of season 3. It's always important for the Black community and the LGBTQI community plus to come together and be unified, because I say it all the time, there is no gay liberation without Black liberation. And so anytime that you want to have me on, it's a pleasure.
I may take you up on that. So thank you. No, I really appreciate having you here, kicking off the season with me, having a great conversation, getting these facts out there. And if you want to share any links with the viewers to help you with any projects with BLM, let me know, share in the comments. I'm sure that you'll hear back from a lot of people for that. And I'm going to leave you guys with that. Remember, like I always tell you, to be good to yourselves. Have a conversation with yourself, come to some truths, and love yourselves. Thank you so much for watching Tea with Taylor. Join me again next Friday at 4:00, and I got a lot of content planned for you, so don't miss out. I'll let you get back to the rest of your night. Enjoy, guys, and thank you again, Harrison. Peace.